Hi, and welcome to Dark Matters. I'm Kali Spell.
I'm Jonny Standing.
And today we have the amazing Laura Eisenhower with us. Hi, Laura. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
Great. I met Laura at the Shine seminars recently. Diana, a friend of ours, Eli, puts on the Shine seminars. And it's such an honor to have you here with us today and taking the time out of your busy schedule. So again, we met Laura at the Shine ever so briefly. A 6.5 hour journey down the M6, Jonny, didn't it? It turned into, that was supposed to take 3.5 hours. So we just about caught the end of Laura's talk. And I kind of came running over to Laura and like a mad fan and bombarded us into, and she very politely accepted our invitation to come and have a chat with us today. Yeah. So I think Eli told me that you were flying in, Laura, from Kalispell. That was at the airport in Montana.
Well, it's the city of Kalispell, and the airport's Glacier International Airport. So it was so wild when I saw your name on the flyer. I'm like, whoa.
I think it's like literally fated that we were gonna kind of merge and connect. So Laura is not only the great granddaughter of President Dwight David Eisenhower, who was the 34th President of the United States. Laura is a renowned speaker, podcaster, and author who has been shining her light upon the dark veil, the false arch-onic light matrix, as we say, that seeks to keep humanity from its true and rightful path to ascension. Doing their damnedest to show us what we are not, I think, at the moment, as I say. So Laura works in many modalities, including astrology, alchemy, global alchemy, exopolitics, utilizing her psychic downloads, metaphysical insights, and beyond, dragging us screaming and kicking and or otherwise into this our new earth paradigm. So again, welcome, Laura, and thank you for being with us at this most auspicious time in history. I call it the fall of Rome. What do you call it, Jonny?
There's this digital prison that's coming up. That's the thing. I wouldn't mind talking about that.
We've got a lot to cover. But Laura, you talk about these false archonic systems that keep us from our true divine path. So these Anunnaki archons, as I said, this is where we get archetypes, architects, archaeology, Ark of the Covenant. This is why the Ark is such a predominant symbol in Freemasonry, I believe. And more aptly, I suppose that, it relates to their structures, or the con structures, as I say. And I believe we are under the illusion of this false light matrix that we are kind of dragging ourselves kicking and screaming out of. And it's facing the shadow side within us individually and collectively, so we can stop projecting that into the holographic field. So, Laura, how would you describe your work to those listening that may have only just heard of you, or maybe never heard of the terms exopolitics or global alchemy? And what positive message would you offer to listeners to this antithesis to this Babylonian Luciferic kind of hive mind control-based antics, which we are perversely witnessing on the global world stage today?
Yeah, wow, that's really awesome. Love everything that you guys are all about. I think it's the most important thing is, just recognizing where going into the dark is a chance to get to know ourselves and get our power back and not fear it and all that kind of stuff. So I just kind of came in very strong in feeling like this mission. Just the warning of the military industrial complex always was really lit up for me growing up, and feeling, Eisenhower's presence, and just like, okay, why did I end up here? And pretty much getting a clear idea of what my path would be about. And so it's very much the deeper soul journey, and acknowledging how, because of our amnesia, we're easily taken advantage of, and the conditioning that we grow up in is very much what hooks us into the false archonic matrix. And so that warning and just getting to know his administration, the things that have been held in secrecy, has helped me to connect dots, because the things that they are trying to keep us from are what everything that warning was about. And I later learned that he set up all sorts of things in order to establish positive military forces, and he had alliances with benevolent ETs, but there's a lot of false narratives and rewritten history. And that's the problem with indoctrination, is when you get a false history, you're not really able to reflect upon history and evolve and grow as a humanity, let alone as an individual? How could we possibly do that if we're not given our true memories as children and as we recover from our childhood? If we're recalling things that didn't happen or are distorted, we're just really being convinced of something that isn't true. So how can we heal? Our body tends to revolt against distortion and lies. Until we correct it, we are going to just be looping in a lot of negative patternings that we need to break. So my deeper sort of soul, I feel, calling that we all have in common is to go real deep and to begin to dismantle it, begin to notice where it's showing up. And so calling out the dark agendas, the study of exopolitics, which has to do with off-planet influences, but also where they exist on the planet in underground bases. What is the galactic history connected to subterranean civilizations and exploded planets and refugees and Anunnaki and all the original, or the origination of it all, from the Lyran Wars to the Orion Wars, and how we went from very advanced beings, 12 strand and beyond, down to this certain level where we don't remember our galactic memories. We have amnesia. We're put in this, kind of system, and we can tell that there's something wrong. But when we end up displaying characteristics or symptoms of it, it's wrongly diagnosed and treated, because if you begin to break through, there's something wrong with you. And that projection and those stigmas that are being put on souls that are here to really break it is a difficult thing to overcome. So I just want to bring a voice to all this to encourage what's already like naturally happening within our own being and help people to divert their attention away from the very thing that's taking advantage of it and utilizing it, leveraging it, using it, manipulating it, and stealing from it, so that we can get on a trajectory that, once we align with, will provide us the synchronicities and breakthroughs we need in order to see what the organic ascension timeline, Mother Earth, and the cosmic alignments and cosmic and natural law and true source energy really wants from us. And we need to switch it on in order for it to become known to us, and so that we can actually see it. We can't if we're just got infected creative channels that are enabling a doom and gloom artificial timeline.
That's beautiful. Really brilliant report. That's pretty much where we're trying to head with everything. Pretty much the same thing. I mean, I joined one of the paradigm groups, the what was it called? The exopolitics one with Steve Bassett, long time back. And I watched the Disclosure Project a long time back, Stephen Greer. So I've made sure that I've looked into all those things, read all the Rendlesham Forest, all the rest about Roswell, like you do, like many of us do. But I always feel what you just said there just resonated with me so much about how you're navigating your way through it all. It's about keeping this kind of, keeping your heart compassionate, being a loving being, really, isn't it? It's about that. Everything else is kind of like in the way of it. And you have to try and navigate your way around all of that stuff. But we don't have any other sort of frame of reference from any education or anything that we've been programmed to believe. Yeah. So it takes some effort, doesn't it, to move into that. But there's a certain amount of us that seem to have a natural interest in it. And I think it comes from something to do with, wanting to love your fellow, human beings in mankind, all that kind of thing. But that resonated with me so much there. The only thing that I haven't really gotten into, which you're into, is the astrological side of it.
Right. So, yeah, it's a helpful tool. I mean, when you're conscious and mindful, it's not so necessary, but I feel when people are dealing with a crisis, or they just feel stuck, or they're just looping in something, it can help to shine some light on, okay, what is the patterning? What's really going on? So it's always there to get a reading from somebody, or to just, it looks a lot more complicated than it actually is to learn. So it's a helpful tool, but it's not like I check it constantly. But definitely when things are really wacky, it's like, wow, okay, like right now, 6 planets in retrograde. All right, well, that explains certain things. Because I do regular newsletters, I'm always kind of checking in, for those that, want to know. So I do check in, but I also just know, just being conscious and mindful, you're going to feel into the patternings, right? And if you can see through the psyops, then you're not as prone to the inversions. That can be like what the shadow sides of the planetary aspects and alignments represent. For example, before the I don't know what I can say, but before, you know, what hit with all the mandates and this and that, it was a powerful growth period for humanity. There was a conjunction between Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, which really represented a huge growth period, letting go of the old paradigm. If a lot of the information that's been presented was really integrated and looked at and processed through, it would have been a lot easier for people to move through this passage. But because it's been so targeted and so sort of smeared and so many different tactics like censorship, making it just not as available or just avoided altogether, this growth period for humanity has been very hijacked, as we see. So, you know, so we see different alignments, and when they're really, really powerful, very often there's some sort of false flag or psyop to drop our energy into the inversion so that we miss out on the initiation and we end up just kind of backpedaling. And so we can break that, but we have to understand, you know, in order to break it, we can't get so overly consumed in everything going on in the news. And like you said, the divide and conquer tactics are huge. And so the biggest priority is staying in our heart, that no matter what our choices are, even if they're different, even if we know, okay, that probably isn't the best one because that's engineered or that's coming from some sort of falsity, you know, the worst weapon is the divide and conquer. I feel all weapons get neutralized and break down in the higher dimensional energies because the physics is different. Alchemy is possible. Transmutation is possible if you're in a higher vibration of love and unity and forgiveness and compassion. When we're down in like fear, judgment, like in the divide and conquer, I feel all these weapons actually really work because the biggest goal is to separate us, divide us, to mess up our partnerships and our relationship with self. So we're always looking outside of ourselves. And if we can get over that hump, I feel that that is the global alchemy and why I put a lot of attention on it, because this window, this ascension window period is all about that. The Venus transits have been creating the corrections to turn the inversions of like the pentagram symbolism right side up, with the ether energy coming in, with the Ophiuchus moving through the sun in 2010, which was right before 2012. And that energy of the mother returning is what's healing our mitochondrial DNA, which is connected to the ether, which helps us to purify the nucleic acids of our DNA to begin to move through the frequency fences and all the contamination that we've sort of ingested, and also how it's polluted our minds. Because if our mind is all, you know, it's going to inform the body to hold on to toxicity. And if we, like, wake up, I feel our body is able to do that on top of obviously having a lifestyle that supports it with good nutrition and getting out of bad negative patterns of addiction. And it's really tough if you're an empath, because as much as I know this stuff, I'm like, sorry, I'm like not having the easiest time.
It's been so sensitive too, isn't it? And it, you know, like creatives are sensitive, and it comes with its trials, doesn't it? But and again, it's you know, it's so important to get that positive message out, isn't it? And I know I've watched, you know, many of your videos, and say, unfortunately, I only managed to catch the last 40 minutes of the talk. But you know, we're so busy projecting these third-party narratives of our hijacked consciousness. You know, this cult of hoops, as Arthur Christian would say, a friend of mine. These Saturnian boxing intervals, these boxes within boxes, which is Saturnian Chronos, Father Time worship at its best, as I'd say. You know, constantly getting us to stir at this Rubik's cube of time and death, to entrap us and hold us in these lower alchemical lead-based frequencies, so that they can become the gods of matter of this. You know, it's all very cleverly designed to keep us from looking inward and realizing our innate power to change that narrative, and to awaken from that dream state that I call duality reality. You know, and like you say, Laura, there's these outside templates. You know, this victim kind of state that, you know, we've all been laboring in. You know, it's just this another template or facade of this, you know, Vatican blood cult that, you know, we are Eden. You know, that I think going back to Eden or becoming Edenic or returning to that, like you say, the earth is the heart. You know, earth is an anagram of heart, and we've been disconnected from Mother Earth. And we've just had a really good interview with a friend of Johnny's, Dave the shaman, and a true shaman, I should say, not one that just has some joss sticks and a few feathers and wears a you know, pair of pretty pants. He's one of the good ones. And so I mean, I was going to ask you this question, but you kind of already answered it, really. So on a personal level, you know, you manage to keep your frequency high, as we try to do, you know, with, but we're we're human. Human in means monster in legalese, but we are men and women. We have our flaws. But what advice would you kind of give to people who are looking to start out on this, because we know it's inward, this inward transformative alchemical journey to reclaim our own stories, isn't it? To stop feeding that narrative and stop projecting that into that field, and to propagate our collective ascension. What kind of advice would you kind of give to people, especially it's getting more intense, isn't it? Day by day they are ranking it up, them, and again, we shouldn't give them the power, but for ease.
Yeah. So like what would I recommend to just navigate it all?
Yeah, just to, obviously, we try and keep our vibrations high, and they keep coming out. I suppose, like you say, it is healthy eating, it is being aware of ourselves, it is understanding we can create our own, have our own source of power, I guess, isn't it? But there's a lot of words that we use that, some people, again, might be watching this, like there's a lot of big words and a lot of big terms, but I think, like Jonny says, perhaps it's just love and awareness and remembering who we are.
Yeah, I mean, the terminology is just to explain that there's a real science and evidence beyond like just the science we learn in school, right? We hear about junk DNA. Well, that's actually not true. So it just kind of helps dismantle the falsities and the dead sciences we learned in school. And it's like, okay, as complex as it sounds, there is a lot to it. So it's not just like fluffy idealism.
Yes.
And most of us don't really need that or see it that way, because we know love is everything. We know that a child would not survive without the love of its mother. I mean, even people that have maybe not had that love connected to a greater love, maybe the love of just mother source of creation, this Mother Earth. I mean, this is called Mother Earth for a reason. And that's a huge source of healing. All the abundance in nature, all the foods, the fruits, the herbs, the animal spirits, just the elementals that are really what connects us on a soul level. Yeah. So that's a really important way to heal, because this is an ascension planet, and everything about the planetary energies is what we want to connect with. I mean, the planetary grid network was and has been massively in just reversals and unplugged in certain places, but a lot of that healing has happened. So much has really taken place in order for this ascension to occur. But if we're not in alignment with it, how are we going to appreciate it? So we have to notice, the dependency bond we have with an inverted system is like being married or bound to an abusive partner or a narcissist or an abuser or a deceiver. And when all the red flags come up, people are just like, no, it's too painful. Just like if you warned a friend, like, about somebody they're in love with or somebody they're dependent on, they might not want to process it right away, except for some would be like, yes, okay, get me out of this. I deserve better. I deserve true love, right? So it takes a lot of self-worth, and that self-worth has been so indoctrinated into the reward system of the status, of the career that you have, the paycheck that you get, the way that you look, all these superficialities, which are addiction to the personality matrix and the world of appearances. So we have to kind of just look at the wounds, because Ophiuchus, which is ruled by the ether, which gives us that alchemical substance on a planetary astrological level. Without having to understand all that terminology, we just need to know that the purification is available in ways that it hasn't been for a long time, which can accelerate our growth. And the best way that we can work with this is to not be afraid of our wounds. So many people want to medicate it or pretend they're not there or just act out. That's why you see a lot of people that aren't aligned with truth very defensive and very angry, because really deep down they're insecure about the things they're believing in. If they were really embodied in truth, they wouldn't need to defend it to the point of hatred or you think differently, therefore get away from me, or like I feel truth is a frequency that is love and is solid in itself and just wants everybody to get along and doesn't feel threatened by our differences, and knows that true oneness is diversity and harmony, that we can all get to the same destination of finding that within ourselves in different ways. So we're not all moving at the same speed. So wouldn't we want to be a resource of inspiration or a embodiment of inspiration and be an example by being a little bit more transparent and willing to admit where, your greatest growth lies? I mean, this whole kind of enlightenment and new agey stuff, and so many people, I'm sure they're way ahead of the game, but some, I think, poses that way. Yeah. And I think it's just time to be real. And I think the more real we are with ourselves, the more we can process without pushing it down or negating it. And I think, yes, meditation, being in nature and this and that, but release what comes up. You know, when you need to cry, cry. We're elemental beings. We see it rain. We see volcanoes explode. You know, we need to be as authentic as we possibly can to connect with the organic aspects of nature. And I feel the geoengineering is a reflection of how controlled humans are. And as elemental beings, we are existing in a lower matrix that's showing that the very same thing that's happening to us is happening to the environment around us, because it's a reflection. And if we can break all of that, and really step into like a real healing process, bringing it all to the surface, writing it out, being creative, you know, then we've cut the cords with that abusive partner, and we're able to just get ourselves back to who we truly are. And then I feel on that trajectory, we begin to see the elementals clear. We begin to see an earth that is not at war with some sort of vampiric force that wants to control not just the timelines, but the weather. And so we see that correlation and not let it scare us, but let it remind us that we're actually more powerful than we can imagine. And this is just a tactic to cause us to forget and to put weapons upon us so it's easier to forget because of the impact that they have on our health. Then, you know, let's gravitate towards the things that are going to heal it and release it. The different foods, the different medicines of the earth, that as all that we need at her disposal to give to us to overcome pretty much anything.
That's fantastic.
Beautiful.
I agree with every single word of that. That's pretty much that. I'm looking at it. It's like a bit of a double whammy, because I tend to look at things with ethical eyes. Is it beneficial for anybody? Is it going to be beneficial for me or anyone that I love? Whatever you do, whatever you say, how you go around things. Sometimes I don't get it right. I can make mistakes, but I just got to let go of it, let it out again, and carry on. But there's so many endemic things that are there for others that I feel really sorry for. There's a lot of people that I know seem to be consumed by consumerism itself, where they're in love with a car, a house, and all the stuff in it, and all the rest of it. And I can understand it. I understand it, because they're programmed to bring up a home, go through the school. What do you want to be when you grow up? And then I'll be a nurse, a doctor, and you say all these certain things. You go through university, you got a degree, you put your flat cap on, Saturnian robe again, all of that stuff. It's all there hidden. Nobody's being shown it. And the likes of your good self are bringing that awareness to many, many folks. And it is all ethical. I actually see that it's only beneficial to learn things that are only going to be there for the benefit of others. This control, why on earth somebody wants to control us or have us under the foot, so to speak, have their foot on our neck all the time. That's the puzzling side of it to me. I mean, I've gone into the Anunnaki stuff and all the rest of it. We've been messed with here once or twice, and now we're hardwired to reach enlightenment. I've been a Buddhist for years, so I'm familiar with a lot of meditation practices. And still, I struggle here and there. I have to admit it. But it's been able to let go. It's letting go of it and not having any fear. The fear, there's a fear porn put through the TV, and there's a certain kind of consciousness of TV watchers. There's probably the same over there where you are.
Disconnect, isn't it? Or the fear of death as well.
Even when they go make a cup of tea, the news is on. They might not think they're paying it any attention, but it's going in. Then they'll talk about it later on in some social group like it's gospel, and it's not. And I fear for people, and I feel for them that they can't raise the vibration enough to try and just open it. Is this beneficial for me? Is it good for people? It becomes self-consuming. And that's my fear for folks. And I think we are living in a time where there's some form of a harvest. What do you think of that? Do you think that's the time we're living in?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a depopulation agenda, but there's also, why would they bother trying to control remotely humans if they didn't want to keep some behind to serve them, because they require something to feed on and they're parasitic. So it seems they want to get it down to a certain number. And when you see like who's being targeted and what's being targeted, well, they want the ones that are trying to wake people up to shut up. And the ones that, I mean, we hear about how they'll target a certain type of blood type or DNA. And yeah, so I mean, the harvesting at this stage in the game being a really critical window of a possible awakening. Not all are going to awaken, but when I say awakening, just getting off a dangerous trajectory. It's like you wake up to yourself, you wake up to the truth, you wake up to like, whoa, okay, this is dangerous. Like, all right, trying to just redirect the energy to what is in alignment with our soul, because that is the ascension energy, is moving into the soul matrix. And it's not like we don't have soulful experiences or we're void of it. A lot of us are more soul centered than others, but where can we fully dedicate to that and be like embodying that and making it a way of life instead of just a concept of just having soulful experiences, but we live a contradictory life. So sorry, wait, I'm kind of getting off your question. Can you just return me? I'm going off on a tangent here.
I was just sorry. I was just basically saying about looking at things with ethical eyes. For instance, if you just take the way they're targeting children now with the transgender and all
harvest and everything,
moving towards that. I mean, that for me should open many, many eyes.
But
now the parents are going along with it.
It's that level of kind of that brainwashing, though, isn't it? That it's that collective spell, isn't it, as well? You know, and there's that mind control element of it, you know. And I've watched a few interviews with Sasha and Kathy O'Brien.
Kathy O'Brien,
and you know, we know that language is spelling. You know, it's the Vatican beast, that language, that beast system. You know, words are cursive. It's a curse, and there's this kind of Walking Dead kind of zombie kind of like, you know, you can tell people what the answer is, but you know, unless they've asked themselves the question, they're not going to understand it. And we know spells are bonds, and you know, I know that more than anybody about bonds and contracts, you know, doing the law and being a lawyer. So it you know, interestingly, you know, once we kind of decode the language and the spelling, because that's what we've been under, this kind of black spell, you know, occult just means hidden, isn't it? These black magicians, like, and again, it's like, these black magicians, like they've got all this power. But really, again, you know, it's we're creating it. You know, we project that consciousness. You know, they're just hijacking that. So we've all been living, for me, in this fictional world of the dead. And what we need is this fearlessness. You know, I don't have a fear of death because I understand the infinite nature of all things. And this kind of, you know, we don't want to call them zombies but you know, this kind of mind control, brainwashed populace that we've got, you know, when they start to become aware of that, when we can kind of transcend time or end the trance of time, as I say, you know, it's like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz for me. You know, when we start to see things as they truly are, we can kind of begin to reclaim and break down that synthetic reality. But because I was going to ask you a question, obviously, like there are lots of false prophets, aren't there, at the moment? You know, in scripture we say, you know, learn the serpent tongue and use it against them. When we understand the Tower of Babel or Babylon, and that's what you know, particularly legalese is Babel. You know, so again, this kind of collective dream state and this, you know, this collective spell. And I think there's so many Pied Pipers and there's so many egos and leading people down, you know, incorrect. I don't know whether there's incorrect paths. I suppose, you know, that's free will choice, but you know, it's like navigating the storm of bullshit, really, to come home to your true self. But I think, you know, it's not about divide for me, but there is a bit of a split. And I know, Laura, you talk about, and if I'm saying this incorrectly, correct me, is it the bifurcation timeline split? And we know time's a bit of a construct, really, but obviously here, you know, gives matter legitimacy, really. So could you explain a little bit more when you talk about that kind of timeline split in that am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Just to speak to the whole I mean, it's amazing to me that the instinct of a parent isn't stronger than the programming, because the bonds of love and all of that I would think would override it. But I know a lot of people are waking up. It's just, that should be enough. Seeing the fires in Maui should be enough. All the directed energy weapons that we've seen throughout time, 9/11 should have been enough. I mean, so long, and it's unbelievable to me. So the bifurcation, to me, I mean, I look at everything from the lens of relationship. What do we have relationship with? That's going to determine our timeline. So we have a relationship with ourselves, each other, and but on the bigger picture level with creation. And the inverted creation is generating and has like utilized planetary grid dark technologies that have impacted the global grid system for thousands of years, that can change the whole trajectory of the human, and take it down a road that we wouldn't want to go. So they've been planning this for a while, this whole new world order. And this is thousands of years of grooming, of world wars, of different events behind the scenes that have been created to bring us to these times where, when they manipulate history and rewrite it, it's very easy to play on our traumas and our confusion. So we staying in relationship with that would be the same as what kind of trajectory are you going to be in if you stay with an abuser. Your timeline, you're not living your fullest. You're giving your power away. Your self-worth is dependent on their approval, or you complying and getting what you feel you need for your own survival, or feeling the problem, reaction, solution is actually a real thing, and forgetting the root of the problem. You're just in the I'm reacting and where's the solution, not understanding that the problem was created by the very ones that are trying to solve it, but not in a way that helps us to advance ourselves. So that's just a negative trajectory. That is a trajectory that you have lost your creative power. You're not in touch enough with your soul matrix. These dark technologies are actually creating a separation from your soul, to the point where your intuition and your ability to see through things and have a bullshit meter is lacking, because the inner work hasn't been there. Have you been on pharmaceuticals most of your life when you were going through a dark night of the soul, and instead of understanding what is the reason behind it, you feared it, or you repressed it, or you saw it as a problem, that something was wrong with you? Maybe something was right with you because you had an appropriate reaction to the bullshit. Maybe anger. If we can understand our anger a little bit better, instead of just have it like be out of control, let's ask ourselves, where's that coming from? And I feel that these symptoms are the ways that we get closer to ourselves. But we've been taught to get further away from ourselves and hand it to somebody else to fix. Same with the larger global problems. So that trajectory is where the bifurcation is happening, because that vibration continues to get lower, lower, and more assimilated into the AI, more assimilated in the falsities, more subject to being not even in a physical vessel anymore, or just being pretty much robotic, or just so immersed in it all that you can't see or perceive the vibration that other people are heading, which would be more the organic ascension timeline. I feel that there is not just like two highways splitting where you just don't see that other timeline anymore. I feel like there's a bridge between the two until the bridge just isn't able to sustain itself. Because think of all the loved ones and family members. I mean, we're not all just going to bifurcate away and be like, all right, see you guys. I think there's a lot of us that have a calling to still be witness to and observant of what's going on. But there's a certain point in which, if you self-preservation and not allowing it to pull you down to the point where you lose your own footing is where a stopping point for a lot of people is going to be. And then I feel that bridge will collapse, right? But I think we're all at different levels of how much we're going to bifurcate away. Some have already left the physical plane, because whether we bifurcate in this physical vessel or not, it's about our consciousness and our frequency. So I feel a lot of people have had enough. And I think a lot of us are still staying here as long as possible. Some are going off the grid and existing in sort of a higher earth energy on the earth plane. And some are being attacked and perhaps they have an agreement to show the rest of the world. There's no way to define it because it's so sacred to a person's own personal journey. But I think it's a mixed bag, and the bifurcation is going to get a lot more defined over the course of time. And I feel with all these retrograde planets, it's an opportunity for people to really go inward. That's what retrogrades represent. And this is the ultimate opportunity between now and when Pluto goes direct in Aquarius to really determine what path you're walking on, and to know that you can reverse, these decisions that you made. So anybody saying, oh, well, you're screwed, it's not what these times are about, because the power of spirit that holds dominion over physical matter and the way that the physics and energies have changed in this particular window period can accelerate the healing process if somebody can just unplug from the social engineering aspect of it. I feel that once the consciousness begins to light up, we become the override frequency. And that is why I like to use the term 5D towers instead of 5G, because we're speaking, our frequency is different. We're in a higher dimensional level of thinking that we haven't experienced for a while. And that's where miracles can happen, and where, we'll find that are capable of doing so much more than we can imagine, but we have to journey through the gatekeepers. We have to be willing to go into that dark night of the soul, not fear it. And this is why I feel we need to come together more and have each other's back and support each other through these difficult passages, because that's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
Not like let it and then anxiety and just all of that. You know, let it open you up, because that's also a download coming in that you're repressing in the body, because it's an electrical energy. Is going to go into panic if you're not listening to what your higher self is trying to tell you. If you're too plugged into this, you're just going to feel survival instead of epiphany.
I was going to say, and that's again, it's that lower energy, isn't it? It's this fear of death, or it's fear of 5G, or it's fear of this. And I think when you're resonating at a higher frequency, it doesn't seem to touch me, or, you know, because we know that, you know, the body's the product of that powerful mind. We've just forgotten how powerful we are. And we just interviewed Jim McCarty, didn't we? The scribe from the Law of One, which was a great honor from studying those channels materials for many years. And you know, he describes this octave that we're in as, you know, this is the third density of choice, really, and we're at this point of harvest where, you know, and again, you know, if I'm going to pronounce bifurcation, why can I not say that word? But, you know, thank you for explaining that, Laura, because that's explained it, you know, that because I've listened to you talk about it and I was like, so it's that kind of, that makes complete sense. So thanks for that. But again, so we can see, you know, so many souls that are still, you know, in this monarch hive mind and this kind of collective slumber. And, you know, I think he called it the wild card of Ra, did Jim. And he said basically, you know, that, you know, in one beautiful moment of potential, though, you know, it might not be probable, but, you know, it's possible. And that everybody can, you know, we can ascend as that kind of collective and turn into what Jim would say a 4D social memory positive complex. And that allegedly, you know, according to Law of One,
where there's more understanding within that community.
Mother Earth is already in 4D positive, you know, time space, really, and we've got to kind of catch up, you know, and it's to face ourselves in the now, in this moment. And that bifurcation, did I say that right once? And that, you know, that analogy with the bridge of it, and I think I've even said, you know, it's a famous supermarket over here called Lidl. You know, you could be in Lidl or Tesco, you know, and actually be on a completely different timeline to somebody and stood next to them in the fruit and veg aisle. You know what I mean? Because so you may be kind of vibrating at that higher frequency, but that bridge is still there. And, you know, it might not be probable, but it's possible that we can all just in one beautiful giant sweep go no and create that new kind of paradigm that we, you know, we want to kind of see. Waking from the intergalactic sleep, you know, as you would say, Laura.